So I am a Black person, shocker, who grew up in American suburbia. I grew up around white people. I'm a like, some people might call a whitewashed Black girl, which I don't resonate with that term at all, but maybe at other periods of my life that was more applicable. But I'm a Black girl who had a really complicated and long journey to understanding myself as a Black person, understanding what race meant to me, because of the fact that I kind of had to define it on my own terms. And I think that the experience of being a Black girl from suburbia is, I think the experience of being a Black girl in suburbia is something that is very difficult and something that I think is very elusive, because I don't think people really want to hear from us. I think people are more interested in being able to define our experience and say okay, this is how you feel about it, and this is how you feel about your life, and this is how you feel about being Black. And I would just like to offer my POV so that this conversation could be less divisive. And so that it feels like there's not such narrow options for you when you are a Black girl from suburbia, right? Because it literally feels like before you sits either just ignoring your life experience and your specific unique experience of race and just kind of assimilating into what other people are telling you to do. And you have that, and especially if you're someone like me who's the daughter of immigrants. And so for me, that option is Black Americans, which is a different lived experience than what I have as a Black African. So you either assimilate into that, or you become Candace Owens, or you do the let me, dance for white people and just be, say and do what they want me to do, which is also not a fun option. So I would just like to present, a secret third option, which is really just my life, right? So I grew up around only white people, did not have a single Black friend until I graduated high school, I think. And I had actually a very brief friendship with a Black girl that many people may not even have regarded as being a good friendship, considering she was a Trump supporter. So it was not like your average Black woman. For me, race was not something I thought about. I'm just gonna keep it 100. Race was just literally not a thought in my head growing up. I think I understood myself on some level. I'm thinking elementary school period, as being different from my peers. I think I knew that. I knew there was something weird about me. I understood that I was a Black person who came from a family that was struggling, that came from a family of immigrants, and I was around wealthy white people in a school district that I only had access to because my mother was a high school teacher, still a high school teacher in that district. So I think on some level, I had the emotional reaction of being an outsider, knowing that I was different from my peers, and knowing that the girls around me who were celebrated, who were loved, who were picked, who were, the girl that all the boys had a crush on, the girls that, look like the kind of girls that I'm watching on Disney Channel. I understood beauty standards, I understood desirability, I understood what the ideal kind of woman was, and I knew that I was not her. I knew that I was not that girl, but I was friends with those girls. At the time, I didn't have the language to know that race played a role in that. I didn't know. It was oh, these are white girls, and I'm not a white girl. And so that's what's playing a role. I want to say, and race was just not a conversation. It was not a conversation in my household. It was not a conversation in my community. I'm so young at this point. I'm not online. I don't know any of this stuff, right? Maybe around middle school was when I think I started to have, a conception of race and an understanding of it. At the time, still, I never felt like I was being overtly excluded in my social groups or bullied or ridiculed in any way on the basis of my race. That calculation still was not in my head. I felt like I was different, that I didn't fit in, that I was not like the pretty girls around me, the pretty popular girls around me, but I blamed money. I blamed the fact that, the people I was around came from families that had more money than me. And primarily, I blamed being fat. I blame the fact that I grew up fat. And I was very interested in assimilating to the girls around me. Here's the thing. Once again, my calculation in my head was not, I'm trying to be a white girl. I'm trying to look like the white girls around me. I want to be a white woman. That was not the thought. The thought was, these are the popular girls in my grade. These are the popular girls in my school. The popular girls, they go to Lululemon. They go to Brandy Melville. They're going to Forever 21. They're listening to Surfaces, Deep Cut. I don't know if that was just a San Diego thing, but they have the white artists that they like. I just kind of understood that I was friends with these girls and like this is how they lived. And so in my mind, it was like, this is how I'm gonna live. And I'm gonna adopt those things. So I didn't see it as I'm trying to become a white girl. I saw it as I'm just trying to become like the popular girls, which to me felt very normal and natural. Now there were parts of being a Black girl in suburbia, the role that race is playing, that I didn't have the language for at that time. So I didn't understand it like this consciously then, but looking back, I can say I definitely played a role as like a jester. Someone brought that up in my comment section once and was like, the hard part about being a Black girl around like white people is like you feel like you just ended going into this like jester role. I've understood that my role in these friendship groups, in these social groups, was being the entertainer. I understood that. And there's a larger role, and there's a huge history that we can go into there about Black people being just looked at as a joke. And I'm blanking on the name of it. Hopefully I can put it on the screen if I can remember like the specific piece of history that this kind of like connects back to. But like I knew that my ticket, my currency, the way that I earned a role amongst these wealthy, beautiful white people, white children, my white peers, was being like an entertainer. And whether this was not explicit, this is not what they said to me, this is just how I felt, that I was like, I knew that I was different, and I knew that I didn't have the same social cachet they did, so like this was my ticket in. Once again, like not a conscious calculation at that point. At this time, when I was in middle school, when I was like 12 years old, this is 2017, 2018, somewhere around there. We're having a few more conversations about social justice, about race, about politics. Trump is in office. It's becoming more of a thing, right? Still very young. Like, I wasn't an active voter. I would have voted for, my family is Democrats. Like, I had my basic political opinions, but I was too young to really develop them. And so there was, race is becoming a larger dynamic. I was understanding that there was like a race conversation happening, and that there was like a white versus Black thing happening. And I was understanding that there was like a side of the conversation that I was supposed to be on. But of course, I'm around my white girls, my white besties. Of course, I'm in my white communities. Of course, I am the only Black person in the spaces that I grew up in. I think the only Black people I knew in middle school would have been Black boys, and there was like maybe 2 of them. I wasn't friends with them. There was no option to stand 10 toes down in this conviction of like, I'm a Black person and I need to assert, be able to interpret my life experience and see the ways I've played a role and see how that shows up in the way that I deal with white people and the way that I engage with white people. And I'm going to explain that to my fellow 12-year-old peers. And we're going to have this nuanced racial discussion at lunch. That was not an option. So definitely a big part of my adolescence was especially once I did start to develop an understanding of race, was, well, I'm around my white girls. We're friends. We chill. We kiki. We go to the mall. Life is fine. We're not going to talk about race. I'm not going to be one of those Black people who's, bringing up these discussions. I was I just wanted to be accepted. All I knew at that point was assimilation. All I knew at that point was becoming like them. That's all I understood. And I just did not have the bandwidth to have a larger calculation on the matter. I have a lot of grace for myself at that period of my life because I was just a girl. I was just trying to survive. Now, going back to being fat. My calculation at that time was the reason, the reason that I am separate from my peers, the reason I am different, the reason that I am not accepted in the way that they are is because I'm fat. So I became very, very fixated on I'm going to lose this weight, I'm going to get skinny, I'm going to be pretty, I'm going to be white girl skinny. That, I was building a shrine to white girl skinny. The amount of pins I was saving on Pinterest of Lily Rose Depp, of Kendall Jenner, of Bella Hadid, of all these skinny white girls, and I was I just need to be them. Come hell or high water, I need to be these girls. Now, once again, in retrospect, looking back, I can say, oh, this was 100% I cannot rub off my skin color, but I cannot rub off that I'm bringing Kenyan food from home to school. I cannot rub off my parents' accents. I can't rub off the things about me that are extraordinarily different from my peers. I can't rub any of that off, but we can wear the same size jeans, but I can be nicer on the eyes. Here's something that's in my control. So I became really fixated on my weight, and that was my ministry for the latter half of middle school, mostly 8th grade, and then early high school. And then it became really bad, and I had an ED. I I did 1 trimester of in-person high school, home hospital for the rest of the year, and then I was homeschooled because I had such bad social anxiety. And so at that point, all I really had, and I was very isolated for high school. So at this point, I just kind of had the memories of like being around these white people and trying to like reckon with them, like understand, okay, like where did my feelings come from? Like where did the way that I interacted with these people come from? And this is when I like slowly started to piece together like how like being Black was like informing my experience and like the way that I navigated these social circles. Now, here's my thing. I understood that I genuinely did have beautiful, fulfilling, loving relationships with a lot of these white girls. You know, like I can't sit here and say that like they all hated me. I can't sit here and say they were all racist to me. Like it's just not what happened. But I can say that racist things happened, especially from the white boys. I can say that I felt insecure. I can say that I really went out of my way to be accepted. I can say that a lot of time I had this instinct that developed that was around like, what's the most like socially acceptable thing I can say like in this conversation, you know? If I start talking about race, like that's not gonna go well. So I'm not gonna talk about it. Like these little instincts that I had, you know, of like, I'm gonna separate myself from like the political social justice warrior Black people because that's not gonna bode well in my interactions. Like those little instincts, I was able to observe that like those instincts that I had started to develop. Whole other conversation, my sister, 10 years older than me, she was in UCLA at the time, I think. She was kind of having her own like racial awakening, understanding herself as a Black person. And I worried about, I think on some level, about the way that was like separating her from the communities that we grew up in, you know, because I only knew white people. Like my only friends were white people. So in my head, it was like, if I started to like think really critically about this, like I'm going to completely remove myself from this community that I've always known and loved. Like I'm going to lose everyone. I did not know Black people. Like I cannot stress that enough. So I know like, it sounds weird. Like why would you not want to like think critically about your own life? And I'm like, the cost, because I was looking at my sister and I was like, she's going in this opposite direction and she's gonna lose everything, and like this is all I have. I can't let this go. So I think at the time I was still like really, and this is like high school, still in like really in denial about like my understanding as a Black person, and well, you know, coming to pieces with the little things because I was starting to become like more socially aware, racially aware, blah blah blah. And then I don't think I really started to ever understand myself as a Black person until I understood myself as a second gen American. Until I understood myself as the daughter of immigrants. That was pivotal in me understanding myself as a Black person. Because I realized, coming from an immigrant family, coming from an African family, coming from a family who had a lot of optimism and belief in the American dream. My father, when I was in elementary school, used to take me on walks in our neighborhood, and he would just tell me about American history. And he was so proud and he was so patriotic about this country. Understanding that was my perspective, and then I grew up as a child of immigrants, of patriotic American immigrants, or people who became Americans through citizenship, through naturalization, whatever that process is. Being the child of those people, being raised in white American suburbia, that informed a very, very particular life experience for me, and a very particular relationship with race. And that's not rare. Like there are other Black girls that had that life experience. Once I understood, that is my understanding of like being a Black person, because I'm looking at Black people who grew up around Black people, who grew up in Black culture, who grew up in, you know, big Black communities. And I was like, we have very different experiences of race. Of course we're gonna have different experiences of race. And I think the way it was being presented was like, there's something wrong. There's something wrong with you, that's not your perception of race. And it was like, I had to sit there and realize, so many things changed. There were so many different factors at play of like why we have arrived at a feeling and understanding of race differently. That's when I started to understand. So when I understood, okay, yes, my experience of race is going to be different from somebody who grew up around Black people. Because you have like a different, it's something I genuinely cannot fathom. I can't wrap my head around it. I don't know. That's not my life experience. The same way that I think someone from that life experience can't understand mine. That's why we have to like sit here and listen to each other. Once it became clear to me, understanding myself as a Black person, understanding myself as a Kenyan, as a second-gen American, that became crystal clear in my head. And I was able to really have a pride in being a Black person because I understood my role in my space and the kind of Black person that I was in America. Like that became clear to me finally. Because, you know, in middle school, like a part of why it was also easier when people became more like socially aware to kind of like deny conversations about race was because I was like, well, this is all being presented through the lens of like Black American culture or from a Black American perspective, which I couldn't relate to. I didn't understand that. So I wanted to bring this to, and I don't even know if I have time, honestly, to discuss this, the part of like where gender plays a role in all of this. Actually, we're not even going to answer that. That'll be my upload for tomorrow. I'm challenging myself to upload every single day. So I'm going to talk about that tomorrow. But I wanted to just make a video about being a Black girl in suburbia and the certain life experience that gives us. And I really, really want to say that I understand myself as a Black person. I love being a Black person. I love Black culture. I love Black women. I love Black women. I love African women and Black American women. I love, like, I was just specifying, but of course I love Black women. Period. Full stop. And I think that Black girls who are raised in suburbia are barred from having that understanding. We're barred from being able to understand ourselves as Black people and understand the sort of like love and connection and community that can exist when you do acknowledge yourself as a Black person. We're barred from that because I think people say, like, you did not arrive at the understanding of yourself as a Black person the way the rest of us did. So you can't get there. You don't get it. You don't understand it. You're removed from it. And it makes me sad. Because I think understanding myself as a Black person helped my self-esteem and it helped my self-perception a lot. And I don't want that to be taken away from people because they arrived there differently. I think that's the conclusion I would like to leave us with. Little side note that I'm forgetting to put in my videos. I am going on a girls' trip to Mexico, to Cabo, with World Packers. I'm partnering with World Packers to do that in September. It's going to be September 14th to the 20th. So if you want to hang out with me in Cabo on a little girls' trip and we could like chill under a waterfall, I'd absolutely love to do that with you. There's going to be a WhatsApp link down below that you can request to join, and then you're going to start getting more information on the trip from there. Anyway, thank you for tuning in.